Hi, my name is Coco with blackfilm.com, and I'm here with director, writer, and producer WES MILLER, and also award-winning actor Jason Mitchell. We're here to talk about the new film Blackheat, which is out in theaters now and is also streaming, or?
It'll hit streaming May 6th.
So it's streaming May 6th. By the time this interview drops, you probably will have it available to all of your streaming platforms that it's available. It definitely is out in theaters. I want to thank you so much. Jason is, having a little coffee break or something. We're going to see him in a few minutes. But right now, I had a million questions to ask Wes, and we were kind of chatting offline. But I was like, no, this stuff has to be heard. I can't be the only one who wants to know these things. So just getting into this, Wes is a director, writer, and producer, but in a previous life, he actually was a lawyer.
Correct.
And what kind of law were you studying at that time?
So trial lawyer, did a lot of civil rights work, some criminal work, some personal injury, but I was the guy who would go into court, talk to juries, convince them why my client is right, and hopefully award them some money.
Of course. That's what people want to hear. But I mean, I wonder, like with law, I think I at some particular point in my life actually wanted to study law. But the reason why I pulled back from it, because I do think that there's something creative about law. It's interesting. I find a lot of creatives do dig into law. But it was like, I felt like I do believe that I would be very good at arguing a point. But at some point, do you feel like in law that sometimes you may argue, you may not necessarily believe your client, or rather, how to make your client right? You know how to argue the law, but maybe in your heart of hearts, you're like, well, this fool done did this thing. Does that ever like tug at you like a little bit?
It did and it didn't. I really took pains to really take cases for people I believed in, because it was really important to me to be able to communicate to a judge or a jury why justice is on our side. And if I don't believe it, it was hard for me to convince, other people to believe it. Now, there are times where I might not necessarily know exactly what happened, but I would, if the law was on their side, then yeah, I would still take that. And there were times when, especially in my younger part of being an attorney, where I was appointed cases where I had to represent people that I felt like may have actually been guilty of a crime. But my job was to protect the Constitution and ensure that the government met their burdens. And I did that and did it pretty well. But, I think doing that over and over also creates an opportunity for you to look within. And just with the grind and everything, that looking within gave me the impetus to look and say, this isn't the final stop for my career. And, just took a lot of prayer, a lot of time, and really gravitated towards my first love of film. And so that kind of was the bridge for me coming into film.
I see. And then that brings us to one Jason Mitchell. Come on to the stage.
What's happening? How are y'all?
We're doing good. We're happy you joined us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Jason. We were just talking about how he had a previous act, right, as a lawyer, and we were talking about that and what it's like to really. I think that law is actually a very creative pursuit, because as an attorney, you kind of have to learn how to win over the jury, how to win over the judge, and how to talk about the facts, right? And like you said, I thought that was really interesting, Wes, because at the end of the day, you have to argue the Constitution. What I think, it doesn't really matter, whether or not
it is storytelling for sure.
Right. It's definitely storytelling. And Jason, from my understanding that, you and Wes have worked together before.
Yes. We got to work on a film called Call Her King. And immediately when I first met Wes, I was like, this isn't just a guy who is a great filmmaker and a hard worker, but also just a really good man. He had really good people around him. You could tell he was building a great team. He had his son there. His daughter was in the movie, and you could tell a lot about, the way people respond to a man. You know what I mean? Like that means a lot, So I would just watch him, and I learned so much from him by just being a fly on the wall, So we got to take a good little run at that one, but afterwards he was like, bro, I think I might have something for you. So I'm like, hey, whatever you want to do, I want to do, So yeah, we're gonna be in it forever, man.
I think that's really,
for sure.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that. And I'm looking at y'all like, you can tell people are really friends. It's like, you better call me. No, but you can tell people in this industry, you can also tell people aren't friends.
Right.
But I think that's great when you know that you can rely on that phone call. Like, I got you because I understand that you definitely can fulfill what I need for this next role. So it's wonderful for people to know that not only does one have to deliver and show up, but you have to really be able to maintain these relationships, because that's how you get the phone call. We don't have to go through an endless round of auditions because people know your pedigree, so Jason, I think that's kind of nice to be with. But in this movie, this is a very heavy theme movie, and it really is very serious, and it's something that has been very much so a part of the conversation as of late, because it's very real. We're talking about things like human trafficking. And we're talking about this role that a parent plays in really trying to be there and save their child. And both of you are parents, yes? And to daughters?
Yes.
Correct.
I want to know, I will start with you, Jason, because we haven't heard as much from you just yet, but I want to know what that's like when you're dialing into a role like this as someone that is actually a parent and having to draw within, to try to embody this part, but thinking about, just what this role could mean and just really living and what the worst case scenario could be. What was that like taking on? Because again, this is very real. This is happening to people.
Yeah, my daughters didn't have that extremity happen to them, but my kids have been through real life forensic interviews, and as a father, it's scary, because the first thing that they tell you is you can't ask your kids any questions, you can't be in the building when we question them. It's just all of these things that you can't be a part of, and you feel helpless, and we all know as fathers, me and Wes joke about it all the time. As soon as somebody has a daughter, we like, well, welcome to the shotgun club. You know what I mean? There's no telling what you would do if your child was in this situation, So I just thank Wes really for giving us such a safe space to be able to operate in this really eerie space to enter as a father, you know what I mean? Because it's something that you hope that never happens, but without the dialogue, it's hard to talk about these things, right? Because it seems like the thing that happens when your kid goes, on some girl trip across the country, or when they leave the country, you never think that it's going to happen 5 minutes away from your house because you've been working a double shift all week. You know what I mean? So I think that just getting the dialogue started is a great thing, but he definitely had us in this safe space where we could really operate and really get busy, you know what I mean? And really let the feelings out that come along with that, which is a dark place to go.
And Wes, writing something like this, what made you feel like it was important enough to actually put on screen?
My daughter, I think when I first started writing this was around 3 or 4, and being a father watching this little girl at this age, I just started doing some research, and it just landed on me the responsibility us as parents have, and then double for dads as little girls, and what we sow into these children at 3 and 4 makes a big difference at 14 and 15. And that's not something that I ever consciously recognized. And so that was the impetus. And then I started researching and just seeing a lot of, young girls who are broken and filling these holes in their lives with these other guys, these people who see their vulnerabilities, see where the weaknesses are, and figure out ways to manipulate their way into those voids and get those hooks in. And so, that was the impetus. And then, ultimately we want to tell entertaining stories. We want to keep the audiences coming and having, enjoying the ride, and letting them lean in and see these beautiful Black faces on big screens, but also, having them, walk away with something a little bit more at the end of the story.
Yeah, that's what I thought was really cool. A lot of action movies, they leave you talking about, oh, what about this part? And what about this part? But it's never like a dialogue that you want to talk about with friends and family. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really cool, for sure.
And then for you, Jason, you've worked with many A-listers. You've been in some really huge films and huge projects. I do wonder for you as an actor, when you work in a film like this, and WES gives an opportunity to people who have not been as seasoned on the stage as you have. So you have like a DreamDoll and NLE Choppa, who have certainly held their own in this film. I didn't really know what to expect. You know, I didn't know, and I didn't, you know, and I want to be honest about that. So
No, for sure.
I don't know DreamDoll in the capacity where she could act opposite you and really hold it down. So I was just like, okay, you know, the things and I'm not even saying that they're bad things. I just don't know this about her. So when you look at this as an actor, and again, like with your accolades and the things that you've done, and you work with someone who hasn't really necessarily been given an opportunity. So that, again, that doesn't mean that she's not up to par or not. And same thing for NLE Choppa. But when you work with these individuals, what's it like for you when it's like, okay, I'm sitting here with the rookies. Let's see, you know, can y'all handle it? You know,
right. Well, I'll start by saying this, you know, coming from the music world, you know, because I'm 38 now. So we've definitely seen some actors who have come from the music world who probably shouldn't have, you know.
I can name, and I'm kidding. I'm just playing.
but you know, there's also been some people who really came and killed it. You know what I mean? And I think part of that is letting the ego live somewhere else. You know what I mean? Because like NLE, for instance, he didn't come as NLE Choppa. He came as Bryson. He had 1,000 questions. You know, he was very locked in. He just wanted to know, and he knew that in this situation, you are the rookie. You know what I'm saying? And it's important for you to listen, but also, you know, some people just got it. Some people have talent, you know. And when, again, like I said, when you have somebody like WES creating this safe space and who is like just a master communicator, you know what I mean? A lot of times it's hard as an actor to let what's inside of yourself free. So once you have that space to be able to operate, you know, it's up to somebody like me to say, hey, if you do have questions or if you do feel weird about something, like, I got you. You know what I mean? If you fall, I'm gonna be the one to hold you up under the arms. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna make sure we get across the finish line. But like everybody, I really felt like held their own, you know, and really held it down. You know, even Shiobann, who plays Riri, she really stepped it up. You know what I mean? And when you're thinking about shooting at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, and these people are bringing these just A1, you know, like they really killed it. You know what I mean? I really wish that I could take a bunch of credit for it, but a lot of it, you know, is just us coming in with a certain amount of professionalism and just a certain amount of support, you know. And once we have the space to be able to trust each other and love on each other, like you get the best out of people.
I'm really big on giving people an opportunity. If I don't know you in this capacity, it has nothing to do with anything. If you are somebody that's exactly. I'm really big on that. So I do like to see that. So when I saw, like, it's almost like I know them, you know, like, okay, like I see, you know what I mean? So I love to definitely see that. So that was very important. And also, WES, there's another thing I noticed, because it's funny, because he said shooting at 5, 6, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I really noticed that you took some very deliberate shots here. It's very dark. So the photography here, like, it was very cinematic, and it was interesting. It was very much so a part of the project itself. So it was very interesting to watch the shots. So what went into making sure that it happened at those particular times, and how you had this? It was the lighting was very important here. I think it really contributed to the story, I should say.
Yeah, thank you for that. And, you know, it was real important for us, you know, in the sense of, you know, we wanted the audience to feel the heat, to feel the confinement, but feel the authenticity and the grit. So, you know, it was going for more of a polished, gritty, you know, we wanted to feel like we were in there in the city. We wanted you to feel hot. We wanted you to feel trapped. And so it was 100% important for us to shoot on location at the time of night, where these parents would be. And, you know, it was tough because we shot every night at night. Like, I don't think
like really.
Every night. So when the sun went down, we started shooting. When the sun came up, we were done. So like, or as the sun was coming up, let's turn the camera that way. The sun's over here. So, you know, it made it challenging, but it also made it much more visceral. And so we wanted photography to capture that.
And Jason, there's a lot of physical scenes in this film. I mean, you kind of start out with it just out the gate. You know, I mean, did we have to get the gym membership? Like, what was going on in order to do this?
You know, that vest that I have on was an extra 35 pounds. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Wes had kind of told me before, he was like, hey, you know, I got this role for you. You might want to start getting it together, you know, because I'm a very athletic person, but I had put on some weight at the time, you know, and he was like, hey, man, listen, it's going to get serious. You know what I mean? So I lost a ton of weight doing the movie. You know what I mean? And as you can see now, like, you know, a couple of years later, I'm almost 6-pack status now. But
okay then.
I give a lot of that to Wes, you know, because he was like, you have the talent, you know, and if we're gonna make you an action star, you have a very unique opportunity to do something that a lot of people don't have the chance to do. So take it seriously, you know, take care of your body, take care of yourself, you know. But I did do all my stunts in the movie, I think maybe except one, but yeah, he gave me the opportunity to be able to do it. And I was like, yes, I want to do it. I don't care. You know, and me and NLE, we really got in there at times. We got some bumps and bruises and scrapes, but it was so rewarding. You know what I mean? To watch it, because some of these movies you watch and you can see the shuffle. You're like, yeah, you know, that's the double. That's not the same person.
No, that's as I'm like, it looked like he really did. Like, you know, he really getting it in.
Yeah, he gave us the opportunity. Really got it in. Almost unheard of. You know what I mean? Because the truth is, you know, you accidentally get cut across the face or even just scratched or something that changes continuity. You know, you can end up losing 2-3 hours or lose a couple of days. So sometimes it may not be worth it. But we was like, well, listen,
it's a good point.
Let us try, you know, and he believed in us. He believed in us, and we had a dope stunt coordinator, and we just got it. You know what I mean? We just got it, and we really felt it. So yeah, man, I'm super excited about that.
Look at he's genuinely happy. I'm like,
I've been waiting on this my whole life, you know. That's what you want to do. You want to have
you want to rough people up,
boys, and you want to do the fighting scenes and the running, and you want all of this to be able to come together, you know. And this was the first time I actually got to do it myself, which was awesome, you know. So. Yeah, hats off to my guy for that, for sure.
Hats off, for sure. And Wes, you know, for so long, I think that there was a period of time, like maybe into the 90s, well maybe into from the 90s to the 00s, where like there were a lot of Black films and movies, and there seemed like there was a general interest. And it was just sort of like a hard stop. And Hollywood just thought that nobody wanted to hear our stories and nobody cared. And as of recently, like in the past decade or so, it's starting to, you know, people listen, the numbers are there, the audience is there, people want to hear about Black stories. And for you to tap into this, and it seems your mission to make sure that these stories are told. How important for you was it to see that people now finally are noticing, where it doesn't even matter what Hollywood thinks, because we're doing things wherever we want to do things, but to see the value in our stories? Like, what does that mean to you?
I hate when people say this, but it means everything. But you're tapping right into the ethos of Blacklight and what we're trying to do. And even if you notice at the top of this story, they're talking about a couple of the classics.
I loved that. Yes.
Yeah, hearkening back. And ultimately, me as and I, you know, just candidly, you know, I didn't go to film school. I'm self-taught, which means that it's taken me a little while to really find my voice. So meaning that, you know, one of my earlier films was a faith-based movie. Then it was, you know, working with Taye Diggs and George Lopez and John Cusack, which kind of touched on issues in the Black community, but wasn't necessarily leaning into my voice as an African-American creator per se. Then I worked with, you know, I did a Western, which was about a Black cowboy, but again, it was more of a quote unquote universal story with a Black protagonist. Then I did, you know, work with Bruce Willis and Frank Grillo and Kevin Dillon, which was again just a regular story, not really leaning into who I am as an artist or who I am as a person, and where I grew up in Memphis and the world that I know. And it was first with Caller King that I really started leaning into and understanding and figuring out my voice. And I talked with Frank Grillo about this, and he was like, it's beautiful because you're finding your authentic self and you're communicating your authentic self. And so Blackheat for me is the first one where I'm fully leaning into my authentic self and authentic voice. And part of that is looking back at the 70s, and Blackheat was a 1976 movie. The 90s, the Menace to Societies, the movies I grew up on, the Boys in the Hoods, the Love Jones, the Brown Sugars, like all of these stories where they were talking to us as, you know, youngsters that, like you said, that just went away. We didn't go away, but Hollywood stopped making them. And what's so beautiful now is we have direct access to our audience. Yeah. And when you make something, like I said, for me, it's important to put beautiful Black faces on these screens, the big screens. And when you make it and you market it, they will show up. Sinners is a perfect example of that. You know, you make it, you market it, we will come. And so for me, you know, like right now, we're definitely leaning into that ethos of making cool genre films, action films, you know, some love stories for us, by us. And, you know, you mentioned like, you know, NLE and DreamDoll, you know, Latifah, Will Smith, like there's a whole Ludacris, there's a whole generation of rappers turned actors, Common, from that, you know, the 90s generation that if you, like you just mentioned, just kind of went silent from like 2000, let's say 3 or 4, you know, for the last 15 to 20 years, you just haven't had that push or that crossover. So, you know, I'm excited to be hopefully, you know, at the forefront of reinvigorating, you know, Black cinema and being part of it, even in a small way. So, I don't know, you touched on something you said there, so I've been talking for a minute, so I'll stop now.
No,
but
I want to piggyback on that because it's something that I think everybody should know, right? It's people that look like you who keep us afloat. 68% of the people watching TV are Black women. You know, and I think a lot of times we forget that we owe y'all entertainment. God gave us these gifts to put in front of the world. You know, that's what it's about. So I want to say for that, thank you so much, you know, and you know, if God says the same, you know, people like Wes and myself will continue to entertain y'all. And what have we been calling it, Wes? Edutainment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We'll throw some things in there, you know. So yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good, you know. But we just have to continue to support each other. That's what it's really all about, you know.
And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but even when you look at the reviews for this film, for people who have seen it, it's been very well received.
I love that. I love that. I'm scared to read reviews. I never do.
He's like, I don't want to know.
I never read reviews. I barely watch playback.
We talk about it, and like for us, for me especially, you are our reviewers. You are our critics. The audience, you know, I make it for the audience. I mean, if the critics love it, that's amazing and awesome. At the end of the day, I want us to love the stuff that we do. And sometimes, you know, you'll hit some, you'll miss some, but we'll always be at bat. You'll always be entertained. Some will land harder than others, but we'll always you'll always know, like, oh, we're gonna have fun at it, and we'll keep bringing it.
I have to throw this out there. It's interesting because Jason, first of all, I need to make sure that we are all pronouncing this correctly, because it's not New Orleans.
Yeah, it's New Orleans.
He's like, yeah, it's New Orleans. That was established.
I'm glad that was well received.
I'm like, okay, I will never say it incorrectly. But see, I hear sometimes people say Nowlands. Is that
yeah, that's something that they made up. I don't.
Okay,
yeah, you know, we letting Nola slide now because we get Nola. You know
right. So he is from New Orleans. And I was actually born in Chicago. I'm originally from Chicago. I've just lived in New York so long. You know, you don't hear none of that, you know. And I don't be saying on God and on my soul. I don't even know. Yeah, driving the car. I don't even know if I ever really spoke like that. I don't know. Maybe I did. I just didn't. Because I used to couldn't hear a Chicago accent. Now I'm like, oh, you from Chicago, you know.
No, it was the hardest accent I ever had to study.
Right. That sounds. Oh, yes, exactly. And I hear it though, but it's so. I can't do a Chicago accent anymore. Like it was because I used to know it. Like I was it. So now it's like I can't pretend. It's you know, but yeah, it's just interesting. I had to throw that out there. I'm like, you know, I know a little about Chicago myself. And then I also wanted to bring up there's a little bit of synergy here because Wes, you're from Memphis, right?
Correct.
Up the pipeline now, Louisiana goes to Tennessee, goes to Illinois, all the way up to Chicago. Even when you were out in Chicago, I'm sure you probably met so many people whose roots were in Louisiana. And so many
absolutely,
people
absolutely.
Yep.
You know, it's funny. Ice Cube's dad, I believe, is from Shreveport originally.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of people, you know, who have become successful definitely came from the South for sure.
Yes, that come from the South, and the migration patterns as such. Like I have so many people that I grew up with that, like I said, either literally came from Memphis. They would spend their summers in Memphis, or they'll spend their summers in New Orleans.
Yep, 100%.
There's a little. Yeah, there's listen, whether I'm forcing it or not, I'm demanding that people recognize there's kinship here, okay?
Absolutely.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Absolutely. You can tell we all start looking alike. You're like, somebody got some explaining to do.
That's why I only mess with people on. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm playing. But you guys, it's been so wonderful talking to you. Jason, I just have to say it's so good to see your face. It really is. You know, it is. It's so good to see your face, and it's so good to see someone that's willing to act along people that don't necessarily have the same sort of star power in that channel. I'm not taking nothing. Of course, I can't take nothing away from DreamDoll or NLE, right? We're not taking nothing away from them, but it's the fact that they're not necessarily known in this channel. And Wes said, listen, they are ready for these roles. And you said, listen, we're doing this. You know, people. There's so many stories you hear from people be like, for instance, like I know we were talking about the idea of actors, or rather like R&B artists or maybe rappers or whomever becoming actors. Sometimes people really are offended by that. They're like, they didn't put in the work per se.
Yeah, they feel like they skipping the line. You know,
exactly.
But the same goes for us. If we wanted to turn around and make a song,
it gets hard
right now. And guess what? It's gonna hit the charts like everything else. You know what I mean?
People get so mad at that though.
Exactly. And I think a lot of times, people are so focused on being the one. I want to be the man. I want to be the one in front. And at the end of the day, if you do it for the love of it, it's about the moment, because all I can do as an actor is leave it all on the field. I got to give it my best right there in the moment. It got to feel right then. I can't wait till the edit and be like, Wes, maybe we could try something a little different. Like, nah, that's gonna cost us $60,000 to reshoot this. We can't redo that. You know what I mean?
And let me chime in, Jason. Let me. You're very humble, dude. But like when you're the number one on a call sheet, and there's a series like on Apple right now that kind of discusses this. But there's a huge responsibility. Where number one goes, so can the show go. And watching Jason work with Dream and work with Bryson and work with Talha and watching him be present in the scenes, watching him lean into the generosity that's needed to give these actors space to find their performance. And we just had another experience that I was just talking to my editor on. Jason, I just shot something else. I can't really talk about it, but he had a very emotional scene, and his scene part took a while to get there. And watching this man here give her the space to find the performance and to bring his vulnerability each single take is something that people may never ever see, but speaks to the testament of the actor that this young man is. And and so when you see NLE have a great performance and an electric scene with him, when you see the connection that his character has with his daughter and has with his wife/girlfriend, it's not by accident that their performances rise to the levels that they do. And so Jason is by far like one of the best working actors out there, bar none. And just watching him with that magic and being part of that creative process has been so humbling and so like encouraging. And that's why he stuck with me. You're gonna have to keep dealing with me. You know,
I love it.
if it's a close call, he's coming. So so yeah, I just wanted to share that before we say our goodbyes.
I'm so glad you got to share that. I got to tell y'all this. There's one scene in the movie. First, we start off the movie just extra black, like we were talking about the black movies. But I'll tell you, one of the blackest things I ever seen in a movie, and we're not gonna give it away, but it's the pressing comb scene. I said, now ain't that about the blackest,
right?
The blackest solution in the world? I said, oh my gosh, my people. Wonderful. No, it's a good film. It really is. And like I said, Wes, there's certain things that we don't always talk about in films. Like I said, the lighting is so important and it puts us there. I think that people will be surprised to know that y'all were actually getting up and filming at those times as well. It's not just set, right? It was really about being in the moment and
in the hood. We shot in the hood.
We shot in the hood. No, but it's great. And I think that people who haven't seen it yet, it's going to be very, very well received. And it's nice to, like I said, see other people branch out into genres that they're not necessarily known for. So I think that they probably owe you guys, like they probably credit you so much for just, giving them that opportunity. And it's just nice to see that. And Jason, as always, you show up, you pull up, we already know some acting is going on. For sure. For sure. And once again, my name is Coco with blackfilm.com, and I'm here with director, writer, and producer Wes Miller, and of course, award-winning actor Jason Mitchell. We were here to talk about Blackheat. It is in select theaters right now. It will be streaming on May 6th, you told me?
Correct. Yeah, it'll be in all your platforms, May 6th.
All streaming platforms. If you can't make it to a theater, make sure that you catch it streaming, guys. It is a very good movie, and y'all gonna have fun with this. I know I did. And listen, Jason he been in the gym. I mean, listen, it is what it is. That's what I'm talking about. Y'all both take care. It was such a pleasure and an honor to speak to both of you.
Yeah, thank you for having us so much.
Thank you. Wes, I'm auditioning for something. I might have a little acting in me too, You never.
All right. Be on the lookout. We give those opportunities.
That's what I'm talking about. I see you do. So you might see. Listen, Jason, I'm sorry. You might be stuck with me too.
Oh, no, look, I'm down.
No, I appreciate you both. Thank you for taking the time.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Love,
bye.
Right,
Bless.
Okay.
If you want to see more content like this on blackfilm.com, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell.